Hello and welcome to Coffee and Bonsai with Tom. Today we have another exciting episode for you. I'm going to repot these three Manny Portulacaria Afra Dwarf Jades into a forest. We're also going to prune them. So stay tuned for some pruning and repotting. But first I want to tell you a little bit about this wonderful variety of port. So Manny is just a wonderful variety of PA. They have these kind of like light lime green. They're sort of like, I mean, I wouldn't call them variegated, but they're kind of like if you mix the green and the white, you get this beautiful kind of creamy green, and they have this clamshell shaped leaf that is just charming. I think the leaves are a little bit bigger than regular ports, but not overly large, certainly not like the size of the large leafed PA. And it's just a great little plant to work with, and I just really like the leaves. They're way more interesting than any other Portulacaria. So I would definitely recommend checking them out if you're at all interested. I had 5 of these, and I've been trying to put them in a forest. And I just haven't been happy with how they work. So I've kind of decided that instead of that, I'm going to do, some people say it's only a forest if you have 5 or more, otherwise it's a group planting. So I guess technically we are going to do a group planting today with these 3 wonderful little Mannies. And, it's kind of the same old story with many of how my forests come about. Now, I just haven't been very happy at all with these 3 trees separately, so I am trying to elevate them by putting them together, and we'll see how it turns out. So let's start by pruning what will be the main tree here. It's a bit overgrown. You can see I've just been letting it run its legs a bit, run around since I brought it outside, and they're pretty good growers. I mean, I wouldn't say they grow as quickly as standard ports, but it's respectable. You get good growth. It's looking a little rough around the edges, so I kind of want to just give it a tune-up and have it look like it's a planned design. So I'm kind of looking at it here from what I think is the front, and I'll just kind of prune off some of this long growth and thin some of this stuff that, is kind of tight into the trunk and really preventing us from seeing it. I sometimes just start almost with a profile prune here, right? I'm just kind of taking this back to get it in a generally pleasing shape. And then you can see some of these are, like 6 leaf pairs long. So I'll just kind of cut those back and then, become a little more discerning as we go. But you can see already, I mean, just with a bit of profile pruning, it looks far better already. And I actually recommend that if you don't have time to, really prune your trees, or, if you're not sure what to do, just kind of take it back to an overall profile shape. And that often really helps you to see the branch structural issues and branch selection that can come after that. I just took off that growth growing up, straight up, and we got some stuff coming down here. Haven't decided how much I want to take off. Usually what happens is this has been in this pot for, I don't know, probably a year, maybe probably more like closer to a year and a half to 2 years. It's an Iker pot, beautiful pot maker out of Ohio. Check out I think it's Iker Pottery, but does a nice pot. And I think I don't want to do too much with that. So we'll bring in the second one, and we'll also prune this guy up, just a little neatening. And I kind of want to get the kind of the shaggy stuff taken care of, and we can do a little more fine pruning once we get them in the new pot, if that's what we decide to do. Another difference I've noticed with this Manny variety, and I think it'll help by putting it in a larger pot, they seem to like a little more moisture, like in terms of, they just seem happier just having more of a consistent kind of not soggy wet, but kind of moist soil in the way my other ports don't really seem to care. I typically allow them to get extremely dry and then water them, and they just bounce back and plump up. And these ones, they're a little slower to bounce back, I find, and I think they're just much happier giving a little more TLC. And yeah, this is kind of a nice slant style we got going on here. And yeah, I think the reason I picked these three trees to do in this group planting is I've kind of got one that slants to the left, one that slants to the right, and one that goes straight up. So I think there'll be a natural group of three. And here's the third one that kind of goes a bit to the right. It's got quite a bit of shaggy growth on it as well, and it's responded pretty well since I put it outside. But just gonna neaten it up and give it a crisp, kind of styled looking profile here. Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm working at a dog groomer's, kind of, especially in the summer. I mean, these things grow so much. You're just constantly giving them a fine tune-up, and it's just amazing what just a few simple trimming cuts will do for you. It looks great. So next step, I want to get them out of the pot here, and I'll just pull them out and take a quick look at the roots. Looks like we have a nice little root ball here, about what you can expect in a pot that size. And I think these trees will probably end up growing quite a bit better, kind of sharing a larger root base. It just gets, it's more stable. They have more access to soil. And not a lot of roots on this one either. All these guys were hit a bit. I had them in the chiller area over winter, and the mealybugs, I almost said aphids, the mealybugs really kind of, stormed the gates on these guys. So, they were kind of knocked back a bit. Boy, not a lot of root on that one. And so, I think getting them into a larger pot will actually help them grow considerably. And this is kind of what I'm thinking about the orientation of them here, like basically like this. And we'll bring some pots in now and just kind of try them on for size and see what we think. This is a pot that I fixed with my kintsugi techniques. I've got a few videos on that. I'll put a link in the video description. You can check it out. But I thought, maybe that pot might work out. This is a white pot that I've had for over 25 years. It's probably 30 years. It's a Japanese pot. It's probably an antique, actually. And the third pot is, I think they call this Groggy Froggy or something. I got this off a potter on Etsy, Brightside Bonsai, I believe. And I'll put a link again in the video details. But he does a really nice job, really chunky, heavy, solid pots that are just well designed. And so those are the three that I sort of want to have a look at and compare and see what we think. So let me try to get these in there and see how this one might work. I don't know, right away I'm just not having a great feeling on this one. I think this pot would be great for maybe a large jade that's just gonna kind of live in here for a while. But I think even for a group planting, it's just a little, I don't know, too deep and congested. So I don't really like that one. So that one's out. Let's see. Let's bring in the Froggy Groggy, and yeah, I kind of like the color. The pot is a bit heavy and chunky, I think, for these, maybe. I mean, it's I think it might be a bit too much. And let's try this white pot. I always like white pots, and I think they're sort of a simple design is quite pleasing. Let me get the third one in there. Yeah, I mean, I think by far of the three pots, there's no question in my mind, this is the way to go. I like the contrast, I like the size. It's got a lot of good root room in there, and they naturally have enough space to spread out and form a nice triangle here. And so I think they'll have room to grow, and I can kind of prune them into this into this forest plant grouping. So we're going to go with the white pot for sure. So on to the repotting here. I've already got the pot ready. Got some screens put in there, so we're good to go there. And I think I'll just throw some soil in there. You can see the smoke coming off. It almost looks like dry ice. I recommend people sort of, especially if you're in an enclosed area, wear a mask. You don't want to breathe that stuff. And so I'll try to get the main tree in here. Boy, the bark actually looks pretty good on this thing. I don't know much about this variety in terms of how the bark ages, but this looks very promising so far in that main tree. So this will be the general orientation, and I'm going to get some more soil here and try to get these things about where I want them. I'm going to use rocks this time. These are kind of very small trees at the moment. Like, part of why I want to put them in here is, get them in an area where they have some room to grow, and just kind of let them grow in here for, I don't know, the next 1.5 to 2 years, and then move it on from there. So, I'm patient with it. I'll just use a chopstick here and try to work in the roots a bit there to try to get this to stay up so I can devote more attention to how they go in. This is honestly the hardest part of a forest or group planting, is trying to keep the weebles from not wobbling while you're trying to get everything situated. But yeah, I'll probably put some rocks in here once I get these about where I want them. And I always reuse my soil. I mean, there's hardly any organic stuff in there at all, so it's not like it's kind of used up, so I don't really have any problem with that unless it looks or smells bad or something. So I'm going to work this in. There's not a lot of roots on these, but I think there's enough of a ball in the end that, being pushed down with the new soil, it should probably stay reasonably stable with just a couple of rocks. And so I'm just kind of gently working it in a bit, and then kind of having a look at, I sort of want a triangle shape on this, at least initially, and then, we'll continue to refine that as the trees grow. But to just get it, looking reasonably good before we just start growing it out a bit. And this one doesn't have a lot of roots, so it's a little harder to get that one to stay in there. But that's not bad. I could probably angle this one out a little more. I generally like the trunks all the same angle, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I think just kind of creating a little bit of space there. You either have to angle the tree slightly, or kind of slam the trunk way over by the edge. And so I think that looks good. And I also like the fact that the tree on the right, they're not equidistant, right? It's sort of like a little further away than the tree on the left, so it kind of gives it a little bit of asymmetry, which kind of makes it look better. This one was really leaning too far back, so I'm just going to change the angle so from the side it looks decent. And you can see it has more growth coming toward the front than in the back, which isn't usually what you do in a forest, but I'll be growing these on, and we'll fix that with future pruning. So I think it looks good now, and hey, it's my group planting, and I will it looks good to me, so I'm going with it. And it's something we can easily fix as these things really leaf out heavily in the remaining 2.5 months of growing season that I have here in my area. And as you can see here, it's always a good idea to spin the tree around and look at it from all different angles when you're repotting, because you'll see stuff you just don't see otherwise, and you can fix a lot of those angles and issues easily just by looking at it from a different orientation. So I think this looks pretty good, and I'm going to go ahead and get some rocks here, and we will rock this tree in and stabilize it. I think it's pretty good. I'm not going to use a huge number of rocks here, but I try to have at least, a couple of touch points on each trunk, and then you kind of push them in a little. and throw a little more soil on there, and you've got a pretty stable system to hold those trees in place for sure. And it also gives you an opportunity to sort of fine-tune the angles of the tree before they grow roots and sort of get themselves a bit more locked in position. So yeah, I just kind of gently put the rocks in here. It's always a good idea to have a variety of different sized rocks, depending on how big your landscape is and your pots are and how close they are to the edge. You really need a bunch of different sizes, but I think that looks pretty good. We have a nice triangle shape here. I think as a group planting, this works quite well. And I'm just trying to find, I'm trying to use color coordinated rocks on this, so some black ones if I have them. And like I said, I like to dump a little more soil in there to really hold the rocks in place and just make it look like, they've been sitting there for a decade or so. So I think I'll put in a bit more soil here. And, I kind of mound it up a little bit. I think it's helpful. There's a lot of, if you think about soil, right, it's a pretty tough environment at the surface, right? And so, the tree really can only use about, maybe 2/3 of the bottom of the pot, where it can comfortably have a safe environment for its roots. So you really, mounding stuff up on the top kind of buys you a bit more root space. So I'm just going to take my chopstick now and gently kind of work this in. You probably hear there's a lot of trucks going by with boats. It's summer weather here, and everyone's taking their boat out on a Sunday. So I apologize for that, but we will just calmly work and put our soil in among these rocks, and it really helps just to fill in the nooks and crannies here. And I don't know, I just love having rocks on the surface. I think it just really, particularly for forests and group plantings, it really just adds a natural a natural look to the composition, and it's easy and basically free. So it's really I don't know, I really recommend it. And you can see this actually looks quite good. I'm really impressed with how this came out. It's like and I think, if there's any kind of message to this video, it's that, sometimes you can take some trees you don't value and put them together in a way that just really makes you like them, and come up with something special. I really like this, and I have a lot of faith and hope for the future that this is really going to be a planting that just gets better and better over time. So I do think this looks pretty awesome. I do want to do a little tweak on this one on the left. I sort of feel like the tree on the left is a bit close, and maybe the tree on the right. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll just kind of use my chopstick and sort of hold the tree where I want it, and then kind of work on the soil a little bit. And I found you can pretty easily, see, that's a lot better. Now we have a little more space, and, I realize this is going to grow in, but I want it as good as I can get it initially. And I think I'll just swing it around and do the same thing to this tree on the right, just kind of work on the soil a little bit and kind of just reorient the angle of the trunk, because I think it'll be a lot better to create a little more space. And because these are going to continue to grow in, so yeah, that's way better. I really like that. And we actually even have more of a space between the trunks on the left and the right, and I think that just looks fantastic. Really happy with how this turned out for sure. And with that, that's pretty much a wrap for this video and this tree. I'm really happy with how this turned out, and I think the takeaway today is, if you have some trees you don't value, think about a group planting. Like, they frequently turn out much better than you would have thought. And with that, I want to thank you for spending time with me and watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.